All right. I was gonna apologize before I got started that I thought I was gonna have to leave for a second, but it worked out. So I won't, and I can continue the meeting. Welcome everybody to our second session, Central Texas Association of Black Social Workers. This is our second session. Welcome. We welcome you today. Thank you for joining us. We have an exciting topic. It's your voice, your vote, your voice. This is an important time for us. And so we want to look at the process of voting in McLennan County. My name is Trina Cooper, and I will be your facilitator today that'll be leading the meeting. If you have any questions, just jump right in and get into our discussion today. First off, I want to introduce our officers who are present. We have our president, Dr. Sharice Chevelle.
Hi.
We have our marketing and internet expert, Ms. Marie Hines. We have our secretary, Ms. Jamie McKinney. I'm Trina Cooper, and I'm membership and engagement. And we have a couple of other officers missing. Najia is our vice president. And we also have Melanie Cephas, who is our treasurer. We're excited today we're excited because this is our second session. We want to welcome any new members or guests. If you are thinking about joining us, we'll be giving information at the end of the meeting. But if you're a new member, just kind of introduce yourself. I see we have Ms. Kristen Howard from Baylor, Ms. Kanisha Johnson, we have Ms. Lisa Estelle, and we have Aaron. Welcome, ladies. All right, we're gonna introduce the speaker, the lady of the hour. And I'll be sharing a slide with you to present our speaker. Hold on just one second. Okay, all right. Our guest speaker today is Ms. Pat Miller. She is the County Commissioner for Precinct 2. Ms. Patricia Pat Chisholm Miller is the newly elected McLennan County Commissioner for Precinct 2. She is the first woman to be elected to McLennan County Commissioner's Court and the first African-American woman to serve on the court. Patricia Miller was born in Brooklyn, New York, and at the age of 10 moved to Waco, Texas. She has been a citizen ever since. She graduated from East Texas State University, my alma mater, and is a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated since 1979. Patricia Miller majored in political science. She worked for TSTC Waco Women's Resource Center under governorship of Ann Richards, Welfare to Work program. Ms. Miller has been with the Commissioner's Office since 1995. Patricia has a long history of community service and civic engagement, which has shaped her personal philosophy. The more challenging the test, the greater the opportunity for bold, purposeful action. Ms. Miller has received the Delta Upsilon Zeta chapter of Zeta Phi Beta's Community Service Award for Government Affairs and the 2018 Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority Lady of Distinction Award. Ms. Miller has served on many boards within the Waco community. Should we list the boards? There are a lot. She is married to Robert Miller Sr. She is a mom, grandmother, great-grandmother, and last but not least, a loving aunt. Patricia is a member of Tolliver Chapel Baptist Church for over 50 years. And just a small little tidbit, her sister, Miss Bennett, was my 8th grade history teacher. So we have a lot in common in our community. Ladies and gentlemen, we welcome Miss Pat Miller.
Good morning, ladies. How are you?
Good morning.
And thank you. That was such a gracious and kind introduction. I appreciate that. I may need to take you around when I start running for re-election.
I'm ready. I'm ready.
Well, good morning. And what an appropriate subject for you guys to be kicking around this morning, especially being African-American women. I think this is a pivotal time for us. And I think, I know that we're standing on the mountaintop of one of our greatest challenges, but like all of our challenges, I know that we're going to meet it. To kind of kick us into a really healthy discussion, I thought I'd throw out some interesting facts. Sometimes when you talk about voting, everybody kind of goes to sleep and may not seem that exciting, but I want to throw out some things to you all. And I think the impact of the information will relay just how important this moment in time is and just how important you are in this moment in time. Okay, ladies? As of 2019, there are 328 million people in the United States. Of that population, 47% of us, or 153 million, are registered to vote in the United States. In Texas, there are, as of 2019, 28,995,881 people in Texas. 56 of that population is registered to vote, right at 16 million. In McLennan County, there are 623 people in McLennan County. And out of that number, 56 of us are registered to vote, which means that in all of our pivotal elections, only half of the country is weighing in on the decision. So we're starting out with only half of us participating in the beginning. When we look at our last presidential election, of the 157 million people that were registered in 2016, 138 million of those were voters. And 48% voted for Hillary Clinton, 46% voted for Donald Trump. But Donald Trump is our president. Hillary Clinton won the popular vote, and she won it by almost 3 million votes. But Donald Trump is still our president. And if we don't get it right in 2020, Joe Biden can win the popular vote and Donald Trump can still be our president. And so I hope it's not boring, but I'm going to share a little bit about the Electoral College because that's what's beating us up. Donald Trump won the Electoral College. And he only won it by 77 votes. So that means we have a president in the White House, and there are only 77 votes that has him there. It represents 77,000 votes. But when you look at that across the country, that is still a drastically insignificant number, The Electoral College was created by the Constitution because the smaller states and the slave states did not want to be overpowered by the northern and more populous states. And so they came up with a system where each state would have a certain number of representatives who would go to the Electoral College and cast that vote. So in Texas, we have 38 electoral votes. You have one for every representative that you have in the United States Congress, and we have 36. And then you have two for your two United States senators. So that made us have 38 electoral votes, which is significant because we're only behind California, which has 55. And so if you're wondering sometimes on the news why on the national landscape they keep saying Texas this and Texas that, they're looking at our electoral votes. Donald Trump won with 306 electoral votes. 270 wins it. There are 538 electoral votes nationwide. And that is, we have 435 people in the United States Congress, and we have 100 senators. And so that makes up the 535 plus the District of Columbia has 3 electoral votes. And so there are 538 votes, and 270 is the majority that allows you to win the Electoral College. He won 304. And so I went back to see what would have made the difference. since we know she only lost by, what did I say again? What did she lose by? You thought I was gonna let you guys off the hook?
It's
77.
77. Yeah.
Yeah. Has she won Pennsylvania? And she only lost Pennsylvania by 44,000 votes
Mm.
statewide. She lost Pennsylvania by 44,000 votes. Had she
Mhm.
won Pennsylvania, she would have won its 20 electoral votes. Had she won Wisconsin, and she lost Wisconsin by 22,000 votes statewide. Had she won Wisconsin, she would have won their 10 electoral votes.
Wow.
Had she won Michigan, and she only lost Michigan by 10,000 votes statewide, she would have won their 16 electoral votes. Had she won those 3 states that she lost by 77,000 total votes, when she loses Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan, she loses by 77,744 votes. But she also lost, those 46 electoral votes. Had she won those 46 electoral votes, she'd be our president.
Mm. Wow.
She'd be our president. And so let's turn to the power of our vote. And in this season, we're hearing a lot about the African American female vote. And I give us credit for standing strong when we weren't getting credit for doing what we have always been doing. And that is, we have always been voting, and we have always been a Democratic bloc. To kind of just give you a little, and for some of this it might be repetitious, but to give a little background on the African American female vote, we've come up through a struggle. I remember when Barack Obama announced he was going to, run for president. My boss at that time, our first African American County Commissioner Lester Gibson,
Yeah.
he called me into his office and he said, "Well, where do you stand? Hillary's running in the primary and Barack is running in the primary." And I just told him from my heart, I said, when I walk in this office, they don't respond to me because I'm a woman. They respond to me because I'm African American. And I did not realize how true to history that statement was until I read the history of the African American female suffrage movement. When Susan B. Anthony started the suffrage, it was a suffrage, let me see if I can find that real quick. There was a suffrage march that they were going to have in 1913 under Woodrow Wilson, who was the president. And Mary Church Terrell, she asked if the African American women fighting for equal voting rights could march alongside. And what they were told is that, well, the Southern white women wouldn't be comfortable. And so they said, you can march, but you're going to have to march in the back.
You know, Ms. Miller, I always wondered, like when they celebrated recently the suffragette movement, and I was thinking, was that really a part of us? Were we a part? Because we weren't free. So I always wondered, how can I celebrate that? So I'm glad you brought that up.
Okay, and I tell you what, Trina, I'm gonna bring us full circle because
Okay.
I also had that as a conflict, especially being a politician and asking people to vote for me. And I tell you, Ida B. Wells, and anybody who knows Ida B. Wells Burnett knows that sister was strong.
Yes.
And she said, okay, you can ask us to march in the back, but I'm marching alongside. And
That's
she
right.
marched in 1913, but she did not march in the back.
Okay.
Now, at this time, this is 1913, African American men already had the right to vote. They received the right to vote with the 14th Amendment. The 14th Amendment gave African American men the right to vote. And so, after the suffrage movement kind of takes wind, it kind of gets wings and it flies, they align themselves with Frederick Douglass and some other some other abolitionists The suffrage movement kind of marches alongside the abolitionist movement. And so when the passing of the 14th Amendment happens, then white women kind of were a little taken aback because Black men got the right to vote. And what they articulated was that in giving the African American man the right to vote, it would not fare well with humankind in the South. And the audacity of that statement plays into the fact that African American men were still perceived as brutish and a danger to white women.
Right.
So
Based
there,
on the 13th Amendment.
yes, yes.
You know, I was like, that's amazing to have that in the 13th Amendment, but then the 14th they can vote. So, okay.
Yeah. So so then the two movements kind of separate. And then
Okay.
to bring you back around, Trina, in 1944, there was, let's see, what amendment was that? In 1944, okay, the 15th Amendment gave Black men the right to vote. Women are still not voting. In 1944, because women are not going to get the right to vote until the 19th Amendment. So it's going to be 5 amendments down in the Constitution. But in 1944, after World War II, the Supreme Court struck down the authority of states to exclude Black voters from primaries in 1944. But that is when they started with the Black codes and the literacy tests and the poll taxes. And so what married and came together were African American men's struggle to fully see the 15th Amendment and African American women's struggle to see the full 19th Amendment. And that's how Black men and Black women are fighting in the 60s for the full right to vote.
All right. Okay.
So we came through that. In 1964, they strike down all of the literacy tests and the poll taxes, but we know it's not until 1965 that we truly get a free path with the Voting Rights Act. And so we're going to fast forward to 2008, 2012, and 2016. African American women have, since we acquired our full vote and I say our full vote, we know the 19th Amendment gave us the right to vote, but it's the Voting Rights Act that gives us the freedom to vote. And so when we did finally embrace our full freedom, we have been a strong voting bloc. In 2008, African American women, by percentage, voted more than the national turnout. We voted 56% of African American women voted in 2008, and that was 6 points higher than the national turnout. 92% of African American women voted for, 92% of the African American women who voted for Barack Obama. In 2016, Hillary Clinton took about 80% of our vote. What happened to us in 2016 is that in 2008 and 2012, African Americans voted more percentage-wise than whites in those general elections. In 2016, we voted less than whites in the general election. So I think the challenge to us in 2020 is that we've gone through a lot of struggle. We've taken indignities from the white suffrage movement, from the white cultural society as a whole, and we are still standing strong. We owe it to Ida B. Wells. We owe it to Sojourner Truth. Sojourner Truth, when she went across the country fighting for, with the abolitionist movement, she also fought for women's rights. We owe it to her struggle to vote. I think the greatest way we can pay them back is to understand how strong that vote is. And if you don't think it's strong, then you need to think about the fact that as soon as you do a crime, that's the first thing they take away and the last thing they give back.
That's right.
Um, it is a very powerful instrument.
Mm.
As education is, it is the balance in society. It doesn't matter how much money you have. It doesn't matter how much education you have. We all have the same vote. So we're all equal at the polls. And what we have to do, though, is to make sure that our vote is cast with as much strength as we can cast it so that it has as much effect where we need it to have in our community and in our lives.
Yes.
Okay, on that, because I didn't know, Trina, how much you wanted me just kind of do.
Well, we appreciate just that little history. You know, you cleared some things up for me because during that time when they were talking about it, I was like, that wasn't our movement. You know, so I've never been educated on the Constitution and how it works with voting. So we appreciate that. Each one of us have come with a question for you to kind of, and our guest as well, to kind of rally up discussion around this pinnacle point, because it's really our lives are depending on it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna start with our president. We each have a question that we want to submit to you, kind of just around the vote, and we appreciate that history. So, Madam President, you have your question?
Well, I have multiple.
Or discussion point?
I have multiple questions. But what keeps coming back to me as I'm listening to you talk is this reality of how much weight our vote holds. And the thing that grieves me the most is that there are so many in our community who don't understand that point, who don't get it. And that really just, it weighs on my heart because I recognize the weight of our vote, but I also recognize that there's been so much trauma that we have endured as a community that has helped to strip away, you know, our own perception of who we are and how we are positioned and how we need to be positioned, not just in our community, but within this country. And so I asked this question with that in mind. What do you say to someone who has come up with a firm belief that not only they will not participate in the voting process, but that they have this firm belief that even if they did participate, it would not matter.
Make a difference.
You know, their vote does not matter. There is no value to it. There is no, it's pointless to even participate. You know, what do you say? I struggle with this because I, first of all, have to, I have to channel my emotions. I'm being honest and transparent because the first thing I get a sense of anger that starts to rise up within me. And it's not because of the person, but because of the thinking, the thought process that's behind the position that they have taken. And part of it I recognize is a lack of understanding, a lack of information. But the other part of it is I almost sense that there's this complacency or lack of care. I don't know, but what do you say to that? Because this is something I'm very torn about.
There's a a legitimate cynicism in the voting electorate, especially if you look at America today. There's a legitimate cynicism. What I tell everyone who asks me that is, you know, I too sing America. You know, America was built on the backs of the African slaves. A lot of people don't like to look at the our background, our history, our ancestry um, of slavery. But I think when we do not, we fail to see the strength from whence we come. So for those who feel that voting and the democratic process is not for them, that they play no part in it, first, I would say, kind of piggybacking on what Trina said when she said, well, was the suffrage movement ours? It wasn't our movement, but it was. And you know what we have done as African American women is that we have maintained grace and strength through all of the insults we have suffered since the inception of this country. And just as Sojourner Truth went around the country fighting for women's rights and slave rights, the abolition of slavery, she made herself a pivotal figure in the suffrage movement. And so when white women respond to her saying it's not our movement, it doesn't make it truth. It just makes that their response. And that is why we persevere. We received the right to vote when they received the right to vote, and we fought alongside every moment. And so we fully share in that victory. But being African American America, our fight is not over. We still had to fight 20 years after that into 1964, from 1944 to 1964, and finally realizing it in 1965. And so it speaks to a people who will not be denied what is theirs. And so young people and older people, those who feel that the Democratic vote is not a value and is not theirs and should not be cherished, need to understand that it is a gift handed down to us. It is not something that we have earned. It is a gift handed down to us. And it's kind of like at Christmas time, you know how you get in trouble for regifting?
Yeah.
You can't regift your vote. If the only thing that you have to stand against voting is your negative feeling, then you don't get a pass on that. You don't get a pass on that. And I'm glad I started out with just how important the electoral college is. When you see every vote goes toward accumulating those electoral votes. And if you're going to have a president sitting in the Oval Office who lost the presidency by almost 3 million, 2.8 popular votes, but he wins it by 77,000 electoral votes. If it doesn't tell us how significant one person is, nothing will. In fact, again, Joe Biden can lose it if we don't each one person understand that we have to go deposit that gift. We didn't buy it, we didn't earn it, but people died for it. People they suffered more insults and more inhumanity than we ever will. And so we can't be so flippant to say my vote doesn't matter, because your vote is not your own. Your vote is a gift and you owe it to who gave it to you to cast it. And I get really passionate. I understand the cynicism, especially when you look at America. But it's the same message they tried to give us with the suffrage movement. And that is that America is not fully ours, that we are not fully Americans. But if anyone is fully American other than a Native American, it is the African slave.
That's right.
Because we built America, and that vote is ours. Now, it wasn't given, it's a gift given through our ancestors. White America didn't give us anything. If any population of people have earned the right to vote, it is the African American. And we owe it to each other to go as a block. And all of us need to do it. It's like that final exam you don't want to take at the end of the semester. You got to show up, you got to take it, and you got to pass.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
I hope I answered it, Cherise. Dr. Chevelle.
You did. Thank you so much. That definitely helped me kind of move forward and just how I respond. You know, I have to check myself often, you know, because I run across, you know, people who have this mind, I have people who have this mindset in my own family. And I just be wanting to shake them. Like, what is wrong with you? You know, but I come across, you know, people with this mindset often, and I recognize where, you know, where it's coming from. But also at the same time, I think about, you know, if we all were to have that same attitude, if we all were to have that same mindset, where would that leave us? You know, where would that leave us? Not just today, but tomorrow. You know, so we can't have that mindset because, you know, for me, just from a Christian perspective, you know, my life is not my own. So what I do in my life has an effect of, you know, on other people. And so we have to look at our vote in that same way. And, you know, I just struggle with trying to articulate that to someone who stands flat footed in this
Yeah.
society, you know, has made up their mind, not, you know, just closed, just not open to any other um, possibilities or even to reconsider, you know, their thinking with regard to the impact of their one vote.
Right.
Have given me some good information that I can now incorporate into my response, you know,
Yes.
with these individuals that I come across, you know, because I find that, you know, this time is so much more vital, so much more critical than it has ever been, than it has ever been in my lifetime. And so I feel very strongly about all of us as people coming together and casting it. And it doesn't matter what your, you know, where you go, just do it, just vote.
Yeah.
Just
Please.
vote. That's the point.
Please.
Just vote. You know? So anyway, I'll stop talking. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for that response. Does anyone else have a question? One, Jamie or Marie want to go?
Well, that was partially what I had a question about, like how do you alleviate the cynicism behind voting, especially with recent times with the mailbox stuff, and it makes people feel like, what's the point?
Yeah.
It's not going to be heard. But
That's
you touched, yeah, you touched on that. But I just wanted to know about the different ways to vote here in McLennan. Like I read somewhere, you know, you could cast the mail-in votes, and then I heard about curbside voting. Can you tell me a little bit more about curbside, like the criteria? Like I know it's physical, but what about those who don't want to be at the polls because of the COVID and whatnot? Do you know any more about the criteria for curbside or whatever other options we have here to
Okay.
vote?
Well, this is going to be a different cycle because of COVID-19. Excuse me. And working alongside our elections administrator, uh, there are going to be some revisions to the ways you can vote this cycle because of COVID-19. First, you mentioned mail-in ballots. Ballot by mail is available to anyone who is 65 years or older, and this is for the state of Texas. Each state has different laws in regards to elections, uh, but in Texas, all counties vote the same. And in Texas, if you're 65 years or older or disabled, you can vote by mail. And so you can download from the McLennan County website, co.mclennan.tx.us, an application to vote by mail. If you are 65 years or older and you voted in the last general election, the state Democratic Party sent out applications to vote by mail. And so I know a lot of citizens that had me bring them applications. They also received these little blue and white. If you all have senior citizens in your family, they may have received these blue and white envelopes. That was from the state party. And they can use that to send in. You fill it out and you ask for a ballot and you mail it back to the elections office. If, for instance, you do what some people did in my neighborhood, and that is you had me bring you an application, and then the state party sent you an application, and you filled out both, and you mail both in, it's okay. The application to vote is not a ballot. And what the elections administrator does is she just goes by the information on the last application she gets for you. So if a person, like they mailed in the one that I brought them, then they mailed in the one that the Democratic Party sent them, it's okay. They just throw the first one away and they send you a ballot based on the information from that first application. But you can vote by mail. When you get that ballot back, it used to be in prior elections that the only way you could walk in your ballot, oh, excuse me, I sound like Kermit the Frog to me. I'm sorry.
Okay.
In prior elections, you could only walk in your mail ballot on election day because the ballot has to be received by election day. So if you looked up and it was Sunday and you had mailed it in, you could walk it in that Tuesday and they would count it. Because of COVID-19, when you get your ballot, and see, people are going to start getting their ballots as soon as the ballot is permanent. August the 25th was the deadline for a person to file for a place on the ballot as a write-in candidate. So she couldn't print ballots until after that deadline. So she's starting to print out ballots now because the ballot is permanent. There's no one that's going to be added to the ballot. No one else can run because the write-in deadline is passed. And so everyone now is set that's on the ballot. So she can start printing those. So as soon as she starts printing them, she starts mailing those out. So individuals through the month of September, if they have sent in their application and their application has been received by the elections office, they're going to start receiving that ballot. As soon as you get it and you fill it out, what we're doing now in McLennan County, you can walk that ballot in. You don't have to take chances with the mail. You know, normally you would mail it, but if it wouldn't get there by election day, you could walk it in on election day. Now you can walk in your mail ballot as soon as you fill it out, but only you can walk it in. Like I can't walk in my husband's. The person has to walk it in and then you're going to sign it in so that you know you left your ballot and they know you left your ballot. And they're going to check the signature that you used when you signed in on the ballot when they open it up. And then they're going to run that ballot on election day. They're going to put it in the vault. But as soon as you get it and fill it out, you can walk it in. And I've been telling everybody, walk that ballot in.
Yeah.
Because people that are 65 years and older, some of them get around better than some of us. Just drive on down there to the elections office at 214 North 4th Street,
Yes.
Suite 300. It's in the basement of the records building where you pay your taxes. Walk that ballot in. Don't worry about the mail. Just walk it in. Also, it doesn't matter what age you are to curbside vote. Normally, it has been for people who they didn't want to do a mail ballot. They wanted to vote with the machine, but they weren't that mobile.
Mm.
Whoever shows up at that site and wants to curbside vote will be able to curbside vote. If you show up and you don't want to go in, you can call. And right now, the number that they're putting out is for the elections office, 254-757-5043. Doesn't matter where you go, you call that number. And they will call the election judge on the inside of that location, and they will bring out everything you need to vote. And all you'll need is what you would need had you walked in, you know, your voter registration or your driver's license so you can sign in and vote. And they will bring you a mobile machine and you can vote in your car.
Wow, that's awesome.
Okay, that's good.
I vote. And that will start when early voting starts on October 13th. And it will continue through the last day of early voting on October 30th. And it is also available on election day, November 3rd. This year, instead of 14 days, there are 18 days of early voting and 2 full weekends. There will be 2 full Saturdays from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. and 2 Sundays from 1 p.m. to 6 p.m. The first 2 weeks you'll vote Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. And then that last week, you vote the 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And so I'm telling everybody, just vote early, get out early and vote. And what I have noticed is that there won't be, I don't think you're not going to see a bottleneck. We shouldn't see a lot of people in long lines if we get out early, because we're trying to extend that period out for you to vote for 18 days. So if all of us who have to vote in person, if we're voting 18 days and everyone that's eligible to vote by mail votes by mail, and then those who feel like voting curbside, vote curbside. I am hoping, and the reason that I voted to confirm this plan to do it, to deliver the vote this way for this election cycle, I am hoping that we won't see those long lines that we tend to see sometimes across the country. But if I could add something on both of you all, again, on the cynicism, Carter G. Woodson, I bet you all read it because you're all social workers. He wrote The Miseducation of the Negro.
Mhm.
Okay. And remember, in that he says that if the Negro is taught enough to go to the back door, you can remove that back door and he'll still look for a back door. And a lot of times, I hope people understand the psychological trauma and the psychological game that America plays on us. Now we can't get kids to go to school and be quiet and learn. You're cutting up in class when they spend so many years keeping education away from us. Let's make it free and easy for them, and then let's just make them not want it. We won't keep it from them, because anything you keep from a person, they'll come hell or high water, they'll try to get to it. So let's put it in front of them, and there's a chance they just won't choose it. And I think that might be the psychological game with voting. Let's put it in front of them. Let's just keep forcing it on them, forcing them, and they just won't want it. But the minute we would take it away from them, come hell or high water, they would fight for it. And I think we need to understand the words of John Lewis when he said, our voting right is not guaranteed. In fact, coming out of the Bush administration, was it the Bush? Coming out, no, under George Jr., they ratified the Voting Rights Act. Coming out of the Obama administration and going into the Trump administration, we're at a precipice where they needed to renew that portion of the Voting Rights Act, and they have decided not to do it. And so the portion that we are now fighting to get back is the pre-clearance. The pre-clearance said that there was states that had a history of racism, and so anything they would do to voting laws and voting rights needed to be reviewed by the Justice Department before they could enact it. And what they have now said is, it's no racism. They don't need to be pre-cleared anymore. And one of those states is Texas. And I say that to say they are still attacking and fighting at the Voting Rights Act. And so for young people and people who are cynical about voting, turn their minds to the fact that they're trying to take this from you. So don't give it away, or don't see it lightly, because they are trying to take this from you. And maybe, again, like I said, people fight for things they feel people are taking away from them, and they really are trying to take, and they're trying to take it, and they're trying to make it weaker, our right to vote.
You're right. When you just think about the times we're living in, like our last presentation was trauma in the Black family. We're dealing with trauma from COVID-19, from us dying disproportionately by COVID-19, and then the death of our brothers and sisters, Black men and women. So, and we're constantly seeing these images. Then there comes with the cynicism. So it's like a push-pull thing that we're dealing with right now. That's and true. I try to encourage people. I feel like, Dr. Chappelle, you get angry, because I said, if you just look at the videos of them being beat and whipped and tortured for that right, just on that makes me want to vote. I was just raised in a generation of family. That's what we did, So I'm glad that you said that. Jamie, did you have a question you wanted to share?
My question is and was a mixture of what Marie said. It was going to kind of fall into not only how to vote, but have you seen less polling or curbside polling sites open? Because we had been talking at our last executive membership meeting about, do they need volunteers? What can we do to physically help to get people out of the door and get them to the polls or get their ballots in, make sure that people are physically getting there if polling stations are closed, because we hear about what's going on a national level, but not necessarily on a McLennan County level. So, you know, California, New York, different places like that, they might have lots and lots of polling station closed, but we might not. So I don't know. That's one of the things we were looking to, just to know if y'all have seen a decrease in those curbside polling stations, because before we started, we were actually talking about, I was going to sign up for the Power of the Poll website, just to see what somebody calls me back or gets back with me to say what's going on, if they need the help here or not.
Okay. Well, I would encourage you to do that. And also, here in McLennan County, we have vote centers, which means no matter where you go, you can vote at that location. No matter where in McLennan County, if you show up at either one of the 33 voting centers, you can vote there. The machines are equipped to bring up your ballot for your voting precinct. And you can vote curbside at any of those locations. During early voting, those 5 early voting locations that we have, the multipurpose center on Elm, the records building where the elections administrator's office is, at 214 North 4th Street, the First Assembly Church of God location. And I tell you what, because I see writing, so let me get the paper and give you those. Instead of from memory, I'm gonna give you that correctly.
And you can email those to us later too, if you know.
I will. That's okay.
Email those and we will send it out to all of our members, just kind of the information you've given us today.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, all five early voting locations: Robinson, Hewitt, downtown, the multipurpose center, and First Assembly. All 5 of those will offer curbside voting. All 33 of the vote centers will offer curbside voting here in McLennan County. Also, though, in this age of Zoom, and I'm really proud that the Democratic Party instituted this during my election. It's called VAN. It's the Voter Active Network, and it's all virtual. What VAN does, for anyone who would like to volunteer, it allows you to call voters in specified locations, and then it allows you to, you're trained on the system through the Democratic Party. Okay, so if anyone who wanted to train on VAN, and you want to volunteer for this, just let me know. Trina has my email, but it's a computerized system. It's a database, and you can go in and query. Well, I just want to call the voters in Commissioner Miller's precinct. I want to call, remind them to get out and vote, and so it will bring you up the voters in that particular precinct. Or I just want to call the voters in Trina's neighborhood. It will bring you up that zip code. It will bring you up those streets. What you're able to do then is, I'm calling to remind you of that early voting starts, that we have the general election. There's a script that comes with it. In essence, you're asking people to remember to vote. It also allows you to query people who are 65 years or older. So you can call and say, I'm calling to remind you that you do have the right to vote by mail. And have you sent in your application? They can tell you yes. It allows you to go in and say, this is pending. And so you can come back and you can call that person 2 weeks later and go, oh, we talked, Pat, and you said you were going to send in your mail ballot. Have you had a chance to send that mail ballot in? We need your vote. So anyone who wants to be trained on VAN, on the Voter Active Network, you can do it. And the thing about it, if I'm calling and Trina's calling, the people she calls automatically query out of the system. So they don't continue to be called by other volunteers, okay? But they stay there until you complete them. So like if someone's there pending and say you don't call them back in about 2 weeks, there's a chance they bounce back in to allow somebody to complete, because the whole object is to get the person all the way through to voting. So I'm encouraging people, especially during this time of COVID, is a system that's in place all of the time. Like I said, it was, I was just kind of lucky it came up during my election, and we really did utilize it. But it's active and it's available now for you to be trained on. And it's just really great, especially during COVID, because you only have to leave your home and you can touch 1,000, 2,000, 50, however many voters you want to from your computer.
That's cool. That's good information. That's good information.
Can I ask one more? Sorry, I'm gonna be a hog right quick, but I just want to pick your brain about this really quick. Have you heard, because this is one of the other things we were talking about, have you heard in McLennan County of people expressing concern about not being able to physically get to the ballot station? I'm not talking about they're not disabled, but they might not have a vehicle. Yes.
Yes, ma'am. And that is always a concern. If that is something you're interested with, Linda Lewis with the Waco NAACP, and many of you may know her. If you don't, that's okay. I can introduce her to you. But if you let her know that you're available to be a mode of transportation, she'll put you on a list. And if someone in your area needs a ride, she'll give you a call. I also know that me and Andrea, again, we are working with the Waco Transit System. The last time we had an election, they gave free rides to the polls, the Waco Transit System. So we're going to see if they're going to do that again for us, because we and not pun intended, we need to get them in by busloads.
That's the truth. That's the truth. Yes. I know that one of our guests, Miss Lisa Estelle, has a question for you as well, Miss Miller. Go ahead, Lisa.
Okay, Ms. Miller, the question I have, how does it work for convicted felons as well as those who are on probation? Because a lot of them feel like they have paid their debt to society.
We can't hear you, Lisa. Could you speak up a little louder?
So could you
Her question was, what about convicted felons? Yeah, just yes.
Okay, convicted felons?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. The easiest sentence, and I'll explain it, is once you're off paper, you can vote. And if you remember my opening comments, I said that, or it may have been the answer to Dr. Chevelle's question, if it wasn't so valuable, it wouldn't be the first thing they take and the last thing they give back. In Texas, in some states, and we are working on this, in some states, as soon as you are released from jail, your rights are given. In some states, you never lose your right to vote. In Texas, and this is purposeful, in Texas, as soon as you are convicted of a crime, you lose your right to vote. But if you look in the Texas Constitution, I believe that's the United States Constitution, the only form of servitude is when you go into the penal system. You go into the penal system. So when you are released from jail on probation, once you have paid, once you have fully completed your probation, once you have fully paid all of your fees and fines, you are then eligible to reapply and receive your, to re-register to vote and receive your voting rights back. So once, and that's how I say I'll paper, right? And when I tell young people who have been kind of through that system, they know exactly what that means. I said, once you're off paper, you can get your rights back. You can get your rights.
But no longer on probation or parole. Yeah.
Right, right.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in visiting with Linda, who used to be, Linda was our first African-American elections administrator here in McLennan County. And what she does is, if you have not been convicted of your crime, but you are housed in a facility, someone can go in there and register you to vote, and you can vote by mail. I never have done that, and during COVID, I wouldn't do that. but I do know there are going to be representatives from the NAACP who are looking at that. So if you have not been convicted of that crime, means you're not on paper yet. You can still vote. And in prison, you can vote by mail. But if you have been released and you're off probation and you paid all your fees and fines, you can register to vote. And I'll tell you, I had several people, young men and women, during my election cycle that we got them back on those voter rolls. They're supposed to tell you when they release you, they're supposed to tell you, and when you pay your last fine to the adult probation, they're supposed to give you a voter registration card, but sometimes they don't.
Right. Thank you for that information. Does anybody else have any more questions that they want to share? Or ask, I should say?
The Christian hadn't said one word.
I know. Christian, do you have any questions?
I don't. The questions I have are kind of similar to Miss Hines and Dr. Chevelle. But yeah, I'm just kind of listed as I'm a grad student at Baylor, so I just moved back to McLennan County. I'm from Georgia, so I'm learning and trying to become aware of what's going on here so I can tell people. And
We're glad you're here. You're an MSW student in the School of Social Work? Okay, that's good. When I started, I didn't really just give some information. We are the Central Texas Association of Black Social Workers. We are affiliated with the National Association of Black Social Workers, and we work from the tenets of social work. You don't have to be a social worker to be a member. You have to have African ancestry. And we work from the social work principles, but we also look at the Black family, professional development, poverty. We look at different areas. And so we just really feel like this vote is so important. It's so important. And we are really trying to put our heads together to see how we can help. We want to have our feet on the ground and we're ready to go. I thought of, I had an idea to if we could separate, but since you kind of gave us information, you educated us today, like somebody getting South Waco, East Waco, North Waco, Northwest Waco, and we will collect ballots for people. But you said that the person has to be the one to turn those in.
Yes.
And so we can't do that. So we're going to have to kind of relook at it and maybe get on the networking system or see how we can pick up. We want to really play a part. And it's evident today, we published this, I've published this everywhere, and I do realize this is a holiday weekend, which I have to work. But we're complacent, and we hear that, well, it's the same. What's going to be different with this new administration? And so I just try to keep positive. And I have some friends that I push, and I think I get on their nerves. I was like, okay, it's time to vote. And it's so important because my family offered that to me. Anyone else have any other questions before we move on with our agenda, or any comments you have? Let me see.
Well,
let me see.
Erin has something she wants to say.
Oh, it's Stephanie. Sorry, I was just correcting because she posted it. It's Stephanie, Miss Bodie.
Okay. Did she post her question?
Yeah, it says, are there any initiatives with high school students who are turning 18?
There have been in the past. I need to visit with Dr. Peaches Henry. And I tell you, COVID-19 just kind of has us a little hand-tied. But what we do encourage high school students, because if you are 17, but you will be 18 on election day, we encourage those individuals to get registered. So because you have to be registered to vote at least 30 days prior to the election, which means that October 5th is the deadline for being registered to vote. So we have 30 plus days right now to get everyone registered. So if you know of a high school student who will be 18 on election day, they're 17 now, we certainly want to make sure we have them registered to vote. If you have a high school student who is 18 and not registered to vote, we certainly want to get those registered to vote. And we may have to do the old-fashioned phone tree way, where we just call friends who have relatives, and churches. In my church, I have a group of ladies that just make sure that all of their grandsons and grandkids and nieces and nephews are registered. And we may have to do that village approach. But we want to make sure that if they're 17, but they'll be 18 on election day, that they register to vote. And if they're 18 now and they're not registered, that they get registered to vote.
Okay. Any other, do we have any questions in the chat? Okay. Well, we will, it's been so informative today. I feel
There's
like,
a question in the chat.
I'm sorry.
Shameen. There's a
Okay.
question in the chat. It's also how to get children to get their parents to vote.
And, you know, that's a good one. And I tell you, I see it really in the Hispanic culture. And that is because a lot of Hispanic families, the children are English speaking and the parents are not. And they do a lot of, because all of our information is available in Spanish and English, then the children download all of the information and they fill it out, and they're kind of like, they're allowed to walk with them throughout the process. For if that is not the dynamic, but we just want to talk to parents, I would encourage young people. I remember Ella Baker in the civil rights movement. Ella Baker said that the movement really was for the young. It would be the wisdom of the old, but the energy of the youth that would sustain the movement. And that is true today. Young people need to just let their parents see the world the way they see it. America is different, and this is a pivotal time for you guys, and very unique. I haven't seen the stars align like this. We saw the stars align, and we elected President Obama. And I think the historic significance of the fact that he was African American is what galvanized us as a country. Today, there's a direct attack on democracy, and that's not figurative, and that's not poetic. That's truly literal. And I think young people, if they explain to their parents the anxiety they may feel, the fact that they have to be told how to act when they're driving a car and their parents are not with them. If they tell them the fear they have when they go to high school and not knowing if there's going to be an active shooter by the time they have to go to PE. If they tell their parents that they have anxiety because they really want to finish high school and go off to college, but they're not sure if amassing that much debt is going to even be that beneficial to them in acquiring a degree and what type of future they have. Parents are going to have to hear the world through their children's eyes and realize they still have a partnership when it comes to voting. We have to make sure that we lay out a future, that you all can lay out a future for the generation behind you. If we don't do it right, we make it bumpier for you. We don't make it impossible, but we do make it bumpier. So if there's a parent and they're not feeling the power of what that vote can mean for their children, but you have a young person who in their heart, they feel that voting is important, I think, especially as sociologists, because you guys are gifted in how to phrase things and how to see things and then articulate and write it down. That's just the gift that sociologists have. It's the educational process of how do you put that message in their hands so they can deliver it to their parents in a way that causes that parent to act. But there is no way we can look at America today through the eyes of young people and not realize that we've got a fight on our hands and we've got to win it. And not to prolong you, I'm gonna wrap up and Trina can say she's about the longest winded guest speaker we had. But
I love it. I love
it. We've got to understand that I just never have seen our country in the condition where it's okay to be heartless, to be cruel, and to be inhumane to the point that it's dangerous. I don't think the police all of a sudden went mentally ill, but we're having a shooting not several times a month. We're having shootings, sometimes multi-shootings in a week. That is abnormal. Something is wrong. Something is really wrong. When we can put babies in cages and not care if they're eating and not care if they're with their parents, when we can hear that a woman gave birth to a baby and when they went down to check on her, all she had was a dirty piece of clothing to wrap a newborn in, and there's not outrage. If we can't do anything else, certainly we have to remove it. There's a difference in this campaign. With COVID-19, we know Donald Trump can't fix it because he hasn't fixed it. But we do know Joe Biden, along with President Obama, ushered us through Ebola. So we do know he is ready to handle a pandemic. I encourage everyone to just pull the bios of these two gentlemen, share it with your family, with your friends, and with young people who are looking for a message to make their parents vote. But this is a serious time. And what I take personally is that now he's coming after the African American community. He totally disparaged the Hispanic community when he ran the first time, and he got in anyway. And I want us to say, well, if you're gonna come after us, well, that was the wrong thing to do. You're not gonna get in this time.
That's right.
You can't come after us and still get in. And I think we've got to rise up. We know as African American women, we've carried that Democratic Party on our backs before. And just like Trina said, we've done it without even a thank you, and we've shouldered the insults. But we don't do it for them. We do it for us, and we do it for our children. And we've got to do it one more time, guys. We got to do it one more time.
For our children's children. And, so wherever I go, people say things to me, but it's so important. I just want to read from the chat. Lisa Estelle said, thank you, Commissioner Miller. You have educated me on history that I did not have knowledge about. Our lives and future depends on this, and we have to do our part if we want to see change. Christian said, I agree with Lisa. Thank you, Commissioner Miller, for providing that history and drawing the lines through to where we are today. It really helps me to see how significant this right, this gift of voting is. And thank you, CTX, for this great session. I think this has been a wonderful session, and we got some time to keep it going, but I want to move to our next area. Does anybody else have any other questions that have kind of been generated as we had this great discussion in education on today?
I just want to also thank Commissioner Miller. I brought the question about children because Christian, as well as some other social work students at Baylor, we do research where we engage students. So I really see the power that you've talked about of engaging children in these conversations so that they won't be miseducated, so that they will be prepared when their time comes, and they will have the experience that they will be ready to reach back and prepare the next generation. So thank you.
Yes, it's so very important. Next on our agenda, after question and discussion, our secretary, Ms. Jamie McKinney, will talk about membership.
Jamie, before you chime in there, I just want to say I too want to thank you, Commissioner Miller. This has definitely been a wonderful chat here, wonderful experience. I am enlightened, and you have definitely given me some new insights about these issues, stuff that I hadn't even really thought about. Like, you broadened my whole perspective on this, so I really appreciate it. But what I want to say is that I don't want us to stop the conversation here. Like, I don't want us to end this conversation here. I want us to continue the conversation, because I think that especially in this time, as we rev up to November 3rd, we need to continue having these discussions, continue engaging, and continuing to figure out how we can, get the vote out in this community, and then have the kind of impact that we're needing to have in this country. And so I'm just asking, how willing are you to continue having conversations with us on this topic?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Ladies, first let me thank you all for the opportunity to be in with you all this morning. It was my pleasure. Um, I'm just so excited looking out here and I see all of these intelligent, educated African American women. And I always tell my husband, I said, you know, the slaves, they just had to deal with sun up to sundown, but you cannot tell me they didn't look up one day every now and then and go, that's all right, it's going to be different for my children. And so I know they're looking down on you guys going, yep, I told you one day we would rock it and we rocking it. And so I am so proud of you guys. Anything you need, you all just reach out to me. I am here for you. Any information, if I don't have it, I'll get it. But anything you need, you all just reach out to me. I just applaud your mission. And I just commend all of you for the work that you all do.
Awesome. Thank you.
I'm going to get out you guys' way. I love you. And just let me know if you need me.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Round of applause is in order.
Yes. Yes.
Fabulous.
Yes. Yes.
was
That
great.
was that was good. That was good. I
Very, very
learned
good.
a lot today. I guess we could kind of, since we have two guests on here, we want to share with you. I am membership engagement. Was that right, Jamie, for me to put you down for membership?
It is. We're all open and flexible
Yeah.
here.
We are seeking membership, and one of my jobs is to recruit. And I see that Aaron and Christian, you're here. Lisa, Estelle, and Kanisha, if you're on, she had to step away for a little bit. We want to encourage you to apply. You can inquire at our email, and I hope I can get this right. What is it, y'all? Central.
We'll put it in the chat. It's central.
Put it in the chat.
ABSW at Outlook. So we'll put it in the chat.
We'll put it in the chat, and then if you inquire, our president will respond with some history and documentation on us. And then once you pay our membership fee, which is $70 for students, I forget, it's a different price. Is it $75 for students now?
No.
Okay, it's a different fee for students. And then you will hear from me with the welcome letter. We need you. We need your young minds, your insight. And we are the founding members, kind of started this November, December, worked on everything. We're actually going to have a launch like at the library in March, but COVID happened. So now we have to depend on online activity and our marketing to get us through. And so next month, we're going to be focusing on the vote. And so I guess we'll go back to our executive committee and kind of discuss all the information we got today to see how we can move forward. And I thank you guys for coming. Do you have any questions about membership or our organization? Or you could send it in the chat, or you could email us.
I probably will reach out through email to get more of that info.
Okay.
We're kind of looking for the student processing.
And I'm at Baylor. I work in Baylor. I work in student life. I'm a case manager. And so I'm in the second floor of the Slick. Yeah.
Okay.
And
Okay.
yeah, so I work 2 weeks in the office and 1 week I'm at home. So I'm gonna give you guys my email, just if you have questions. It's Trina, TRENIA _Cooper at Baylor.edu.
Awesome.
Okay.
Okay.
So if you have any questions, yeah, I work with Megan Becker. I've been an intern. I've had interns in the past before. I think I have one of your students as an intern, Jasmine Reed. Yeah, she's
Probably.
working in the
No,
care
everyone.
team this year.
Okay.
So we would look forward to you engaging with us. We only meet once a month, and however you want to participate. I think this has been a great discussion. Do any of our other members have any questions or concerns about membership and engagement?
I just wanted to, hi, this This is Jamie. Hello. I just wanted to ask everyone, I don't know if we did this at the beginning, but if you, since you were present, and I know Lisa, you were on last time, I believe we got your information, but if not, if you don't mind, and you don't have to send it to everyone if you don't want to, but send it in the chat, you can send it to Trina or myself, so we can just kind of keep record and have your email on file. If you don't mind just giving us your name and email, that would be good. So then we can also reach out, because we're all busy. And then we can have at least our own little network system of who's attended and who was here and who has obviously for some reason or in some way been interested. So we can also reach out to you if we don't hear from you. So if you don't mind doing that, thank you so much, Christian, for already doing that. So if you don't mind just giving us your email, so then we can keep track of that. And then we do have that FAQ sheet, Trina.
Yes.
So I was going to actually, I think I can upload it really quick too if people want to download it. So that's what I was going to do really fast.
Thank you.
So Christian, when you were talking about like what do the dues cost and things like that, you'll at least get a little snapshot. And then again, we'll still, you know, we'll still collaborate, but you'll at least have that. So everybody will have that. So let me give you just a half a minute and I'll put that up.
You can ask us questions, anything. I think this has been a great session. I've learned a lot today. Anything else before we close out? All right. Ladies, I want to thank you guys for participating with us today. I feel like I had a mini history lesson about the suffragette, Ida B. Wells, abolitionists, bringing us down through the history of voting. I mean, and all the things that we have going on in McLennan County, some things I just didn't know about. I knew Ms. Miller would be able to totally fill us in. I often think about, a lot of you may or may not know, our first African-American mayor was Mae Jackson. And I don't think that she had been in the office a year long, but she had a heart attack and died. I know that this is a pinnacle point. I think about her. She was a sociologist, matter of fact. And think about her during this time. We have got to vote. We have got to vote. I don't know how. I know we hear it. It's almost a cliche, but there are so many factors of oppression and voter suppression. And we can't let that scare us. We can't let the trauma scare us. We can't let any of this scare us, but we need to make our voice heard at the polls. So if you have any ideas, please send them out to us. Madam President, do you have any things you want to share before we close out?
I do not. Nothing in particular. Just thank you so much for attending. And we hope that you will continue to engage with us and participate in activities that we have moving forward. We will, once we make a decision as to how we're going to move forward with all this information that we've gotten today in terms of all these different angles that we can take in order to you know, get the community out to vote, we will make that known. And so if you want to join in with us to do whatever activities that we're doing, we would love to have you, but definitely consider joining with us. We would love to have you as a member of our association, because there is a lot of things that we have in mind to do, and we will need as many as possible to accomplish what we're trying to do in the community. But thank you for attending our meeting today, and I hope that you enjoy your Labor Day weekend.
Yes, everybody.
Enjoy your Labor Day weekend. Thank you. And look, I'll make sure I'll get to Dr. Singletary, our next session, which will be in October. So I'll make sure that you guys have it. Please email me. I check it all the time. I will be happy to answer. And have a great weekend and stay safe.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.